Hey guys, a few weeks ago we took a trip back in time into the medieval ages, and I figured since we already have a time machine, why not, crank the dial up a bit more and head all the way back into the Stone Age. But how exactly are we going to do that? Well, you see, there is one skill which I haven't covered yet as part of the masterclass, and it was requested several times. So guys, today we're gonna talk about knapping. Knapping is a skill used by the player in order to craft basic stone tools, as well as stone tool heads, using a hammer as the primary tool. So it's basically recreating what pre-civilization people did in order to make tools. And that is how I wanted to approach this episode. You see, I used the debug mode to teleport my character way out into the wild and see if I would be able to level up knapping without having access to outside world. Of course, I would not be able to survive the multiple days that I need in order to level up knapping to level 6, which is my target for today's video, without establishing some sort of a settlement base. And not gonna lie, I did use debug mode to create this small base camp with a tent, a well, and some food, just to keep us going through the entire episode. And what I also did is spawn the entire set of knapping books and the knapping magazines required to unlock certain recipes as part of this crafting tree. So yeah, let's look at the literature related to knapping right now. The recipe structure for knapping at this point is very primitive, probably because the skill itself is supposed to reflect primitive times. But in order to unlock these recipes, you either need to find these two magazines, Tool Use of Early Man and Cultures of Prehistory, or pick the Wilderness Knowledge trait, which will unlock all of the recipes and also give you some extra bonuses to carving, foraging, knapping, and maintenance. Now the cool thing about knapping is that it has zero prerequisites in terms of tools. You will make your first tools yourself, and most of the materials required to level it up are actually materials you are able to forage. And for any type of a wilderness survival type of a playthrough, foraging, knapping will be the skills essential for, kind of long-term survival. And if you've never foraged before, I can definitely recommend this episode of the masterclass where I cover the skill in detail. And the only thing that I have not mentioned in that video, and I think it's important to mention now, is that foraging tires out your character. So after foraging for some time, you will notice that your character actually got an endurance impact. So what would be the materials we would be actively looking for? Well, they are very basic. We would be looking for flint nodules, smooth flat stones, tree branches. We would also need a twine, but that's easily acquired by finding dogbane, which can be turned into twine, and also stones. Stones are our primary crafting tool. And stones can be easily sourced either by foraging or by simply right-clicking on stones on the map and selecting the option to remove stone. Same goes for those large smooth flat stones. You just need to know what to look for. So now that we got some basic materials, we're gonna first craft a twine. And once we have the twine, we're gonna make a stone hammer. Stone hammer, which is the primary tool used for all your knapping crafts. One of the very few prerequisites here, however, because in order to make that stone hammer, you need to have maintenance level 1. If you're at maintenance level 0, you will not be able to make your stone hammer, and thus not be able to progress in the knapping skill. So this is something I just found out when I was preparing this video, and I had to go back to the debug mode to add my character a maintenance skill, which he did not have. But once you get that, and once you have that stone hammer, you're now able to level up knapping, and leveling up knapping is actually fairly fast. The biggest challenge, however, is sourcing the materials. You see, the base building block is the flint nodule. This is where you kind of start your knapping journey, because you will be using the flint nodule and the stone hammer to shape that flint nodule into a sharp flint flake. And the flint nodules, they're not that easy to find. So if you're relying solely on foraging, it might take you a while to find enough flint nodules to effectively level up knapping. In terms of numbers, in order to hit level 1 in knapping, you actually need 10 flint nodules, because sharpening a single flint nodule will give you 7.5 experience points. So the very basic requirement is 10. Once you get that, you hit level 1 and you can move forward with the crafts that are, kind of open up once you've hit that level 1. The cool thing moving forward is that once you've hit level 1, you unlock the ability to knap a stone blade. And in order to make a stone blade, you need that sharp flint flake, and each stone blade gives you 15 experience points. So essentially, once you find 10 flint nodules, you can shape 10 flint nodules into flint flakes for level 1, and then make 10 stone blades for level 2. So the first 2 levels are really simple, fast to level up. The only challenge you'll have is finding 10 flint nodules. Level 2 done. So now it's time for the book, because we do all of these episodes with the XP multipliers applied. And I strongly recommend you guys do that as well, because if you don't, you need to do the calculations in your head and increase the amount of crafts, respectively. The knapping crafting tree is very basic, as I've mentioned earlier in the video. It only has a handful of items, and the progression is pretty straightforward. There aren't many, say, shortcuts that one can find in order to level it up faster. At level 2, you will unlock the ability to make 2 different tools. One is the stone blade sight, and the other one is a chisel. I recommend making both. The amount of XP will be exactly the same, but while sight can be used for farming, the chisel is used in later crafts, so you will probably need both if you're going for a full wilderness survival type of a game. And this is also the point where the amount of materials starts to become a bit of a problem, because you will not only need either the flint flake or the flint nodule, but you'll also need stuff like tree branches. So the way that I approach this is, since I did have tons of flint nodules, which I spawned for the purpose of this video, I simply went through the process of flint nodule into a sharp flint flake, and then flint flake into a sharp blade sight, to kind of, progress this to level 3. Another thing to take into consideration while we are closing the loop and about to hit level 3 is that your tools that are made through knapping tend to be low durability, especially at lower levels. So be prepared to use much more than just a single stone hammer in the process of leveling up to, say, level 6, because these are not high quality materials. They are primitive tools, so they will also break often. Now for this next item, we're gonna need tree branches, and we're gonna need a lot of them, because at level 3 knapping, you unlock the ability to create a flint saw, which is basically a very primitive saw. As you can see by the amount of materials, it's a slightly more complex craft. You also need a twine, you need a tree branch, you need those sharp flint flakes, which are basically the teeth of the saw. And once you get all of that, the output experience points that you will receive for this is 50 experience points. So guys, if you need 750 to hit that level 4, do the quick math, we need 15 saws to hit level 4, which is, not gonna lie, quite a lot. Not to mention the fact that having so many saws is probably overkill, and even though they do tend to wear out fast, you will probably never need as many. So again, for the purpose of leveling up, I would say saw is the most efficient item in terms of experience points gain, but if you manage to secure enough flint nodules, doing the prerequisite steps of sharpening flint flakes is probably the right approach to apply. And that's what I did. Again, that was one of the secret weapons that I used to level up knapping fairly efficiently. At knapping level 4, we're gonna unlock an ability to make our own stone axe head. And this was something I was really looking forward to, because I wanted to make my own makeshift stone axes to see how they perform in wood chopping. We're gonna talk about that at the very end of the video, when we will test out some of the tools. But in order to make your own stone axe head, you need the large smooth flat stone. Now this is the first practical application of this particular type of stone in knapping, and it's very heavy, so I personally would not focus on them at this stage. I would probably try and source them whenever I'm doing something else and simply just bring them to the place where I'm gonna craft the tools. This way you'll avoid carrying too much weight on you at the same time. And you've seen me hit level 5 just now. Each stone axe head gives us 100 experience points, so with the requirement of 1500 experience points for level 5, you will need exactly 15 stone axe heads to hit level 5. And once you hit that level 5, well, 2 new items will be available for crafting. One is a stone drill, and you will notice that you actually need that stone chisel that we made at the very early stage of knapping in order to sculpt, I guess, the stone drill. And you will also open up the ability to make a maul head, which is yet another head for a weapon, basically. You'll notice that each one of these items will yield exactly the same amount of experience points, and that is 120 points, with the multipliers effect, of course. And with the requirement of hitting 3000 experience points for level 6, you do the math. It's up to you which path you will take to level up to level 6. I still had some spare flint nodules, so I basically followed exactly the same logic as I did the previous levels. And why level 6 was my target? Well, basically that's where the crafting tree for knapping, at least for now, ends. There is nothing beyond level 6. So the last item in the knapping crafting tree at level 6 is basically the stone blade. Now, I'm not sure how stone blades work in general. I don't think that would be an efficient method of making weapons, but it's in game, so we can make it. But beyond that level, there isn't much incentive to go further in knapping, especially considering the high amount of resources and the weight of the resources and the difficulty in sourcing resources to level up further. Now, with higher levels of knapping, obviously your weapons and your stone tools will have a higher durability, so that's definitely a bonus. But is that a bonus worth so much work? Now it's up to you guys to decide. Me personally, I would probably not push further. Now the last thing I wanted to talk before we close today's video is, as mentioned earlier, I did want to put some of the crafted tools to some real tests. So we're gonna take 2 different stone axes, the lower level and the higher level axes, and see how they perform when chopping trees. First, we have to make them, of course, and just for reference, guys, my maintenance level when I was making these axes was level 4, so this is obviously something that will impact the general durability and condition of these crafted items. Whoops, that was not intentional. But even taking that into consideration, what you will soon see, I believe, will probably make you question how this skill currently works. And I do realize that's quite a tree I picked for the test, but the lower level axe did not manage to chop the tree down, but it did manage to break in the process. So let's see how the big one does. Yeah, and as you can see, it did manage to take that tree down. It was probably already kind of damaged by the smaller axe, but the second tree, which was really not that impressive, took a while, and after those few swings, our head condition is already below 50%. So that is definitely something to take into consideration. Now, don't expect to chop entire forests using these crafted tools, at least at lower levels of maintenance and knapping. To wrap things up, guys, I found leveling up and using knapping as an interesting experience, but completely negligible for probably 95% of everything that we do in Project Zomboid. Now this skill is very unique and very specific for a single playstyle, and that is wilderness survival. Would I ever need that if I play regular Project Zomboid? No, absolutely not. I would be able to source all the tools and materials without the need of going back 25,000 years in history to craft stone tools. But despite the fact that we might question the usefulness of this skill, I hope you found this video at least interesting and educational, and that I shed some light on this still fairly untapped skill in Project Zomboid. But before I let you go guys, a few things from my end. First of all, I wanted to say a massive thank you for the great reception that my special episode related to build 42.8 received. I'm glad you liked it, and as soon as we get 42.9, I'm gonna release a very similar video summarizing the most important changes. As always, I invite you to my Discord community. That's where a lot of the discussions on future episode ideas takes place. We discuss games, we discuss various different things, so if you just want to hop in and hang out, you're more than welcome to do so. The link is in the description of the video. If you like what I'm doing and you're not yet subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that red subscribe button. And as always, that's it for me today guys. I'm Gertrix. Cheers.